since Mr. MC has announced every person on the panel here, I would like to just proceed because I understand this is going to be a very exciting session. Everyone has got a lot to share, lots of gems coming out. So I'd like to first call upon Zen to kick this off.
Maybe can I have the slides? I'll just stand out over here, easier for me to present. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, sounds like the energy is not back. Now let's do it once again. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, all right, we have a better crowd today. All right, thank you so much for coming back earlier. Yeah, and thank you, moderator, for inviting me out for this session. My name is Zen Chow, yeah, from YYC Group. I'm the tax practice leader as well as the tax executive director. So I was made to understand that this session could be dry, yeah, because we talk about, very technical stuff, we talk about tax regimes, but I'm trying to make it as interesting as possible, yeah, I want to make it as interesting as possible, yeah, because what I want to tell you next, yeah, will be four new tax regimes that was recently brought up in year 2024, and of course, having said that, one was actually postponed, yeah, okay, I wouldn't say indefinitely, until another date, yeah, which we do not know when, yeah, all right. Now, I'm going to go into my slides first. Now, Cameron, let's just go into the slides. Let me just tell you something about what is the projected revenue. Now, these are the four new tax regimes, yeah, that will be brought up, or has been brought up, and will be brought in, yeah, very soon, yeah, in year 2024. And in case if you do not know, now, these are the projected revenues, yeah, that the government say is going to bring us, yeah, because of all these new tax regimes. Okay, let's look at the first one. Capital gains tax. I think this has started, yeah, this has started since 1st January. But of course, we know there were a 2-month exemption, yeah, for this capital gains tax in terms of local sale of the unlisted company shares, yeah. But this, yeah, the government says is going to bring us 800 million, yeah, forecasted revenue. Now, the other one, high-value goods tax. Now, this is the one that I was saying that we were supposed to be paying tax when you buy all the branded stuff, luxury stuff, right? But the good thing was this was postponed until further notice. It was said that it will be brought in on the 1st May 2024, yeah, but now postponed, yeah, to another date, which I also do not know. Yeah, let's wait and see. But the government says this is going to bring back 700 million. This is going to bring 700 million to our country, yeah. And now those that are aware that recently, I think this year, one of the hottest topic was this change in service tax. Yes, there was an increase of 2% in service tax, and of course the expansion of service tax scope. This had actually happened on the 1st March, yeah, 1st March 2024. And guess what? This actually, yeah, was projected to bring 3.45 billion, yeah, 3.45 billion to the country. And of course, the last one, the low-value goods tax, yeah, or we call it LVGT, yeah, 1st January 2024, it has been brought into Malaysia. And, we said, okay, low-value goods, but still, it would bring us 200 million, right? That means altogether, yeah, of all these four tax regimes over here, it's forecasted to bring us 5.15 billion extra revenue. But I always say this, high-value goods tax is now there, low-value goods tax is there. That means the next time we should buy what? Medium-value goods. My medium-value goods, no tax, okay? Now, let's go in and let me talk a little bit about, some of these tax regimes. Now, the first thing is service tax, okay? Now, this is definitely one of the hottest topics, yeah, in this year, 2024. Why? Because a lot of confusion's happening. A lot of people didn't know what to do, especially all the merchants out there. They were all thinking, what should I do with this? Okay, why do I say this brings a lot of confusion? Now, let's go to the next slide. Let me show you what actually really happened to service tax. Now, first thing first, increase of 2% in service tax rate. Now, we know service tax was 6%. When it was first introduced, it was only 6%, okay? But, now it became 8%. But not everything 8%, Not everything 8%. That means 2% now became 8% with effect from 1st March 2024. But there were still three services over here, remain at 6%. Now, having said that, those would be food and beverage services, vehicle parking space services, as well as telecommunication services. Well, that means now we have 6, we have 8, we have 2 different rates. Now, but not just that. New taxable services were brought in, yeah, and these new taxable services were actually effective 26 February, but of course, again, there were some exemptions for the last few days in February, so effectively, it's actually effective 1st March, And what were these new taxable services? Now, we have karaoke center, maintenance or repair services, and this caught us by surprise, yeah, brokerage and underwriting services for non-financials, and the brand new Group J logistics services, okay? Now, these things were actually making a lot of businessmen out there, thinking like, wow, so now I have 6, I have 8%, and I have got, new taxable services coming up, so how do we handle this? Now, let's go to the next slide. Let me show you this data first. Some of you will be asking, hey, is this really going to bring good to the country, in terms of indirect tax, yeah? Is this going to, bring a lot of money, a lot of revenue to the country? Especially, we would always like to compare this back to GST. I think a lot of you would always want to know, okay, now, SST, remember 10 years ago, it was GST, right? Close to 10 years ago, So now, right, since SST, is already back, in action for almost 10 years right now, and the government has been always expanding the scope, now increasing the rates and everything. Is this really going to bring more revenue? And you will ask, is this going to bring the same revenue like what GST was? Okay, let's do some history check. Let's do some history check. If we go all the way back to the last year when we were still with GST, 2017, all right, the one full year where we had GST, it was 44.3 billion. 44.3 billion. Then when it moved into SST, okay, now he started off from 20 over billion again, then it slowly increases to 30 over billion, and 2024's forecast for SST was 35.8 billion, excluding the 2024 budget measures. Yes, excluding the 2024 budget measures would mean excluding the 2% increase and also the additional taxable services. But if you still remember just now, how much was the additional revenue for this change in SST? 3.45 billion. Okay, let's make it 3.5 billion. Yeah, make it 3.5 right? Round up lah. If I were to add 3.5 billion into 35.8, I'm still at 39 billion plus. I'm not even there yet, So despite a lot of people are still saying, hey, you know what, now SSC is going to change back to GST, everything also taxable, now everything is taxed, this is taxed, that is taxed. But take a look from the macro view, we are not there yet, right? Even if I add that in, it's only 39 billion, not even close to 40 billion. So let's go to the next slide. So then the big question is, hey, is SST really an effective tax regime or not? See, that's the big question that we need to ask ourselves. Despite the government is trying their best, to increase the rate, increase the taxable services scope, and receiving complaints from everyone, not just the man in the street, but also businessmen out there saying that SST is not friendly at all. But in the end, we don't even, we are not even back to the GST level. So is SST really an effective tax regime? That's the big question that probably we have to ask, yeah? And furthermore, now, because of this 6% and 8%, did you know that a lot of people are very confused right now between 6 and 8% service tax rate? People were always saying that, okay, service tax is always 6%, but now you have to know whether this is 6 or 8. I'll give you one simple example. Did you know a cafe, a bistro out there, they have hard time, revamping their POS system. They have hard time redesigning the menus. Why? All right, because if you're running a cafe, if you're running a bistro, did you know that non-alcoholic drinks is charged at 6%, alcoholic drinks is charged at 8%? Wait, that means I have to go into my POS system again and remap everything again. This is 6, that is 8. That's not the worst. Did you know that if you sell fruits in a restaurant, no service tax. But if you sell cut fruits, yes, there is service tax. And if you charge a service charge, I think you go to a restaurant, you get charged a 10% service charge sometimes, right? That has got no service tax. But if it's a corkage fee, there is service tax. See, these are confusions. These are confusions that's happening within the businessmen, They say, hey, now you give me more rates, and this is subject to service tax, that is not. Why don't we just bring in a tax where where everything is applicable, right? So that is something that we have to ponder upon. So and another thing is that we know SSA is going to bring cascading tax effect. What is cascading tax effect? Tax on tax, because there's no claimback mechanism. There's no such thing called input tax, like the previous GST. I'll give you one example over here. like, okay, recently the hottest topic is the diesel subsidy being removed, all right, okay, but that is another story, all right, diesel subsidy. But thinking about logistics, just now we said logistics is now a new taxable service. Hey, do you know that if I'm a restaurant, right, I have been charging service tax already, what? I've been charging 6% service tax, or even 8%, if I'm selling alcoholic drinks. But I need my food to be transported, from warehouse to my restaurant, from the factory to my restaurant. Those logistic services that I'm paying, there's another tax on it. And these are my costs. It goes into my cost. I don't get to claim back. Then I have to increase my price. When I increase my price, I'll charge service tax again. That's cascading tax effect. So when you expand the scope of taxable services, the cascading tax effect is going to worsen, right? So these are the few things that we really have to think about, when it comes to SST. All right, so now, next one. Okay, now, so that's SST, that's SST, that's service tax, to be exact. Now, the next one is high value goods tax, which I said, it could be a good news. It could be a good news for a lot of people over here. Why? Because this has been postponed. This has been postponed. Why do I say good news? So those that are still thinking of buying luxury watches, buying handbags that starts with L, handbags that start with H, please go and buy before they bring this back, all right? So now let's go to the next slide, So this thing has been postponed to a further date. But in case you're wondering, what is this HVGT all about? High value goods tax. Basically, it taxes on luxury goods. But of course, the big question here is, what is luxury goods? Do I go for brand? Do I see, okay, if this starts with L, if this starts with H, a watch that starts with R, then, I'll have to tax them? No, definitely not, because having said high value goods tax, it means value. We look at value, we don't look at brand, so there's no brand discrimination over here, okay? So we look at the value. Of course, the previous proposed value, these were the proposed values previously, and it may not be true, all right? So don't take this and say, okay, it's gonna be like this, Well, it was said that cars more than 200,000, we call them luxury cars. But again, serious, more than 200,000 is luxury cars, sure. Okay, jewelry more than 10,000. Hey, easily, if you buy a wedding band, it can cost you more than 10,000 sometimes, nowadays, right? That's luxury, you sure? Right? Luxury watches, they say more than 20,000. Yeah, but this is basically what they're trying to go, to. Luxury items, will be imposed a high value goods tax, And these were just the possible speculated thresholds. But then you would think about this again. You say, hey, so now Malaysia is going to impose this high value goods tax, and it was said that it will impose between 5% to 10%. What about other countries? Are other countries doing this as well? Let's go to the next slide. Let's look at this. What are the other countries doing? All right? Hey, look at Singapore. Did you know if you buy Singapore, if you're in Singapore, you buy a luxury car, the tax can go as high as 320,000. No joke, right? There was no typo. Don't say, hey, is there a typo? Because there's a zero in the end. There it is 320%. 3 times that. That means, one time, the price that you pay is just one time, and you pay 3 times tax, As high as 320,000, for luxury cars in Singapore. Other countries like Indonesia, it can go as high as 95%. Vietnam, as high as 75%. China, 56%. Korea, 55%. Thailand, up to 40%. Even the Philippines, they proposed to impose high value goods tax to as high as 25%. So think about it again. If Malaysia is going to impose 5% to 10%, we are definitely at the low side. We're definitely at the low side. Okay, that's why it's not bringing a lot of revenue to us, lah. But still, I know, lah. Being Malaysians, we can choose not to pay tax. That's the best, right? So again, I urge everyone, if you want to buy all your luxury handbags, luxury watches, please buy before this is out again, okay, after this, go to the shopping mall and buy something, all right? Okay, next slide, please. Okay, but here are the questions. Here are the questions when it comes to high value goods tax. So when we say high value goods, all right, how high value goods are being defined? What do we mean by high value goods over here, right? And what's the rate, what's the coverage? Because those were just speculated, it was proposed earlier, but it's still not sure, so we still need to wait for that. And we're waiting for comprehensive list of taxable items and what are their thresholds. And now, is this going to drive away all the tourists? When tourists knows that if they come to Malaysia, they're going to pay tax for luxury goods. Are they still going to come? Unless there is a refund mechanism. So would there be any tax refund mechanism for tourists? Okay? And the question that a lot of people would always ask is, hey, if Malaysia is going to impose high value goods tax, can I go overseas and buy? Then I come back, then I can escape from paying this high value goods tax. But the question is, will bringing back high value goods from abroad still be subject to high value goods tax? Just like the current, sales tax mechanism, we are supposed to still pay sales tax if you bring back goods from overseas. So can we really escape? So these are the things that are still, we cannot be sure. We got to wait and see. Okay, so that's high value goods tax. Now let's go to the next one. Okay, now I'll just touch a little bit about transfer pricing because I know I'm supposed to cover transfer pricing. Okay, so lately there was this income tax transfer pricing rules 2023 being released. Of course, it's PUA 165/2003. I'll just bring you some important points from this income transfer pricing rules. Let's go to the next slide. Now, basically, I won't cover everything because today is not really a transfer pricing talk. But I'll just tell you some of the key highlights, some key points that you should know, you must know, okay, about this transfer pricing rules, especially if you are dealing with transfer pricing. Like for example, last time, there was really no definition of contemporaneous, but now contemporaneous transfer pricing documentation is defined. That means contemporaneous means what? It means this must be done before you furnish a return. A lot of people like to only do transfer pricing documentation after submission of tax return. Rightfully, you're not supposed to because you're supposed to do it before the due date for furnishing a return, okay? And that also brings to, you have to put in a date. If you go to number 2, contents of the contemporaneous TP documentation, right? You need to include the information on the multinational enterprise group, and more importantly, you're required to insert date. Last time, we always say we will backdate, right? No, don't do that, right? Because you got to put in a date, and the date has to be before you furnish the tax return. Okay. Of course, number 3 is about you have to indicate also whatever that is not applicable to you. That means even it's not applicable, you have to mention this is not applicable. You don't just leave it blank. Right? Of course, number 4 says the TP method. Now, those that deals with TP before would know, last time we have to use the hierarchy basis. We have to start off with this method. Okay, not suitable, we go to next method. Not suitable, we go to next method. But the good thing here is that you don't have to. You don't have to follow hierarchy basis. Just choose a method that suits you best, and use that method. Okay? Now, let's go to the next slide. Now, here, number 5 gives a very strong power to the Director General right now. So now the DG has the power to review and replace the TP method if they find that your method is not appropriate. That means that even we don't have to go hierarchy basis. If the DG says your method is not suitable, they can always come and use another method which is actually more appropriate. Okay, here comes the most important thing, number 6. Definition of arm's length range. Okay, now this is actually very much relating to benchmarking. If you are doing TP, you probably have heard about this term, benchmarking. We always, go out, look for data from competitors, from our peers, and we build a range. Build a range, and we say, okay, as long as we fall within the range, we are safe. Now, the range last time was pretty wide, The range last time, we always say interquartile range, between 25% to 75, 25th percentile to 75th percentile. But now it's so much narrower. It becomes 37.5 percentile to 62.5 percentile only. Now, you see, last time when it was 25 to 75, we have 50% in between, we have 50% in between, and that range is really wide. But now, from 37.5 to 62.5, hey, the 50% now all drop all the way to only 20%. It's only 25%. Very, very narrow. So it makes benchmarking so difficult right now. So those that's dealing with TP, you have a hard time, making sure that this profit level indicator falls within your arm's length range. And number 7 says, if you don't fall within the range, the DG will adjust, will do TP adjustment to the median, okay? So that's why it becomes so difficult. And now there's also, the timeline to furnish the TP documentation is official, 14 days, Previously, if you look into the framework, it was 30 days, but then, of course, they changed it to 14 days. Now it's official, in the rules, it's 14 days. And the last one is there's no more offsetting adjustment, which means you cannot say, okay, there is surplus, after adjustment in this company, and there's also a deficit in the other company, so I'll just offset each other. No, that cannot happen anymore, right? So these are the 9 things that you probably need to know, yeah, what are the changes, what are the key changes when it comes to the new TP rules 2023. Okay, so that's about TP. Let's go to the last one, okay? Next slide. Now, the next slide, please. Yeah, the last thing that I want to talk about here is capital gains tax, yeah, which also made a lot of people thinking that, hey, does it mean that next time when I sell my capital assets, for example, I sell shares, yeah, I sell shares that I invested, you know, in Bursa, do I have to pay tax? You know, people were always asking me about that. So let me just tell you a little bit more about capital gains tax over here. Next slide, please. Now, first, when Malaysia wanted to implement CGT, capital gains tax in Malaysia, you know, they actually did a study, you know, what happened to our neighboring countries. In fact, actually, our neighboring countries have been imposing or implementing capital gains tax already. If you look at Thailand, it's 20%, Vietnam 20%, Indonesia 22%, Australia 30%. So, you know, the other 2 countries within our region that are actually still not doing capital gains tax were just Hong Kong and Singapore. Right? In fact, in 2022, 132 countries were already, you know, implementing capital gains tax. Yeah. So when it comes to Malaysia, what is the capital gains tax version for Malaysia? Let's go to the next slide. Let me show you this. All right. In Malaysia, what we're doing is from 2024 onwards, only companies, LLP means limited liability partnership, trust body, and even cooperative society will be subject to CGT. That means if you're individual, you're safe, you're so safe, yeah, there's no CGT. Yeah? But now if you're a company, LLP, trust body, cooperative society, well, doesn't mean all capital assets will be subject to CGT. Only shares of a company not listed on the stock exchange, yeah, like Sendirian Berhad, yeah, for example. So only these. And of course, even shares of a contract company incorporated outside Malaysia may be subject to CGT, but only if this company incorporated outside Malaysia owns a lot of real property or a lot of shares, yeah, of another contract company in Malaysia, okay? Now, but let's first look at number 1 and 2. Now, what's the rate if you dispose of this? If you're a company, you dispose of this and you make a gain. Hey, our rate is only 10%, you know. It's just a 10% on the net gain from disposal. As compared to other countries, we are very much lower, yeah, at the low side, yeah. But the thing right now is, even capital assets outside Malaysia, which you sell and you make a gain, well, that could be still subject to tax in Malaysia already. Why? Because capital gains tax also cover capital assets, number 3, yeah, Roman 3, situated outside Malaysia, but you bring the gain back into Malaysia, you remit the money back to Malaysia, and that will be taxed at your prevailing tax rates, yeah? So it will follow what you are currently paying, yeah? It's not 10% anymore, yeah? So this is what our CGT is all about. Now, but here comes the questions. Now, let's go to the next slide. You see, many people would then say, okay, if this CGT is going to be brought in, you know, if I'm going to do IPO, I definitely have to dispose of my shares for IPO. If I'm a venture capital companies, you know, I'll definitely have to dispose of shares, you know, after investing into certain companies. So that means, you know, there will be a lot of taxes that I have to pay because of CGT. And it was proposed that these are the exemptions, you know. These are the exemptions proposed, you know. IPO, you know, a company disposing of unlisted shares when you go for IPO, no need to pay CGT. If you do internal restructuring due to mergers and acquisition, no need to pay CGT. And even, you know, if you're a venture capital companies and you dispose of your unlisted shares, you are exempted from CGT. However, this was still in proposal stage. Even until today, correct me if I'm not wrong, Manu, correct? Yeah? Still in proposal stage, not gazetted. So what do I do? You know, if I'm a company that wants to go IPO, do I just pull my handbrake and say, okay, let's don't go IPO first because I have to pay CGT? Or do I still pay first, then wait for the gazette to be out and, you know, claim refund? So these are the things that, you know, we have to really address, because if exemptions are given, you know, we should really address this as soon as possible, let it gazetted so that we enjoy all these exemptions. Yeah, so these are the things that I just want to bring out for further discussion later. All right, so I think this is probably my last slide, right? All right, I think the next slide is just my content. Maybe just go to the next slide. So my very last slide is just that, well, of course, if there's any further question, you know, that if you can't get in touch with me, you can't talk to me, my email is over there, zen@yyc.my. You know, can always get in touch with me, and yeah, I'm happy to speak to you. All right, thank you so much. I'll pass this back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zen Chow. Now, Mr. Chong Man Yu, you've enlightened us a lot on the impact from personal and business perspective. Now, Mr. Chong Man Yu, would you like to comment on further? Yeah.
Thank you, Christine. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon to all of you. Just want to say a few comments after looking at the presentation by Mr. Zen Chow. So the first point that I would like to make is that if you need to pay tax, you should feel privileged because only rich people pay tax. Some of my friends have been working for years and years. They say, "Oh, you need to pay tax." They want to pay also cannot. They don't have the luxury or the privilege to even pay tax. So that's point number one. Point number two, we see a lot of, there are SST, high value goods, capital gain, GT, and all those. Those are just instruments being used by either income tax, Hasil and custom to collect taxes. And to be fair to them, directions come from MOF. So they, whatever direction given, you cannot say, I don't want to follow. So it's no choice. Those are the instruments being used, being proposed, it will be implemented. But having said that, I can say that in the whole world, you don't have a perfect taxation systems. Any system also bound to have some limitations, because these are created by governments according to that needs and all those. Even GST also is not a perfect system. So although the input and output mechanism is a very good system, check and balance, but even that, there are some limitations also. And of course, SST. So custom, of course, they are doing very best. Within that system, we know that there's no input and output. So they also have all this B2B exemption and all those. Try not to have too much of cascading effect within the system so that the end consumer will only be the one paying the service tax. So good job, because from GST that time 40 over billion, now reaching 35, almost reaching 40. So it's well done. Working within the limitations is the best we can have at the moment, unless there's another system to be implemented. So we also see that CGT, so is also a good system, just that maybe, okay, so we understand that the Gazette order and all those already being drafted, so maybe waiting for the Attorney General to, because legal terms, right, so need to be very careful, otherwise sometimes one comma, one full stop can mean a lot of things. Although we just say like, one full stop, actually one comma can cost a lot of money also. So because of interpretation. So that one we will wait for it. Of course, transaction will still go on. And IRB also, Hasil also given the assurance that if you need any advanced ruling or whatever, or you need any certainty, you can always write to them. They will try their best to reply within whatever in the law. And one thing that, this is not really tax, but when we look at the whole economic situation of our nation, I sometimes look at it, I also a bit worried, 1.5 trillion debts. So my children also worried. So I think the government is moving to the right direction. Tax to GDP ratio is a bit low. So they are doing their best to actually increase it. So otherwise it's very difficult to sustain the development. So sometimes I even drive to, let's say, outstation. Then I see schools being built. I feel very happy because if you have a schools, then children can go to schools. So once you have all these developments, we need skilled people in order to move up the economic chain. So I was just reading some news that actually not only we need engineers, we need a lot of technicians. Like in China, I read that they have one whole army of people, not engineers, but they are the middle range, the semi-skilled type. So if you have any production or anything to be developed, you can just throw to them. They have people to actually support that type of development. So if you have that type of group of people by using all these vocational school and all those, so investors, in fact, our PM is very busy going to find for all these foreign FDI and all those. So when he brings in, somebody must support this initiative. Otherwise, you bring in, like let's say I run a firm, the boss bring in the jobs, nobody is doing the work, then how? so the client will run away also. So we need all this support system, all this platform, and we need time. We cannot be like overnight you're going to build it up. So you could be 10 years, 20 years. So but once you have it, it will actually by itself attract higher value jobs. And that will move up our economy chain. So I think I've spoken enough. I should not steal the time of our professor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chong Man Yu. Perhaps you could also talk a little bit from the perspective of how does this SST and HVGT tax impact the competitiveness of the market, both domestic and international?
Okay, how would it affect our competitiveness in terms of all this policy? So other than looking at the taxation policy, we also need to look at maybe the strength of the currency. So some countries, for example, our neighbor, the currency itself is very expensive. So in fact, when some of my other friends, they say they want to organize a seminar and all those, instead of flying all the people to Singapore, they say, maybe it's better to have all of them in Malaysia, I say, why? He say, pay 3.5 and above is very expensive. Even $1 to dollar is already more expensive. So they have a good time in Malaysia, actually. And in time, if we can support all this, we will have a very nice industry also. Yeah.
Thank you. So it does sound that these effects have very positive impact on the economic growth and stability for the future. But in the meantime, as all things, people are resistant to change, right? So now maybe I'd like to call upon Professor Dr. Zuraidah to talk about I think you want to start with the metrics, or I'll leave it to you to do your presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Christine. Yang bagi Datuk Sri Nizam, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good afternoon. Okay, so next slide, please. Thank you. So these are the questions posed to me. Okay, how can Malaysia balance the need increase for increased tax revenue with the goal of maintaining a competitive and attractive environment for both domestic and foreign businesses? Next slide, please. I'm looking at the IMD World Competitive Ranking. Okay, there are about few measures there for you to look at. First is on business efficiency. There are about 81 criteria. Government efficiency, there are about 72 criteria. Economic performance, 74 criteria. And infrastructure, about 106 criteria. The most important, because this is a Malaysian Tax Policy Forum, so look at the next slides. Maybe it's a good indicator there. When you look at the government efficiency, we are looking at the tax policy segment. And next slides, when we drill through, go through the tax policy items, you can see there's a list of items that we should look at. The first one is collected total tax revenue. They're looking into that. They're also looking into the personal income tax, collected corporate taxes, collected indirect tax revenues, collected capital and property taxes, social security contribution, corporate tax rate on profit, consumption tax rate, employer social security tax rate, employee social security tax rate, and real personal taxes. And from the OECD report, if you can refer to these tax to GDP ratios in Asian and Pacific economies, we can see Malaysia towards, the end there. Okay, better than Indonesia, but towards the end, lower than the rest of the countries. And the next slide, maybe you can check on this. What is missing in our country? The yellow, you take, okay, value-added taxes, you can see almost all, except two. That is Malaysia and also, which country is it? You have that Nauru, Bhutan. Yeah. So, next slides. From this, okay, one of the report here from the World Bank, they mentioned that to increase tax revenue, maintaining a competitive and attractive environment. The first part is, of course, raising productivity. I know that everybody making noise when the government mentioned that this end of this year, the government will get the increment of 15%, and because of that, there are so many taxes being introduced because we want money, the revenue. So now we are thinking about whether, when you have all this fiscal policy, the mechanism, all this, is it to increase revenue, or we are talking about the economic growth? When you're talking about economic growth, of course, you're talking about the productivity level. Yeah, I believe that the government servant, because I'm the government servant, of course, I will protect them. We will give our best for that. No issue on that. And I can see that, like, the government servant, once they earn more, of course, they have to pay tax. Macam, kita bayarlah tax kan? Okay lah, kan? Okay, next. We have the one is a greater market competition. Of course, would provide economy-wide benefits. A more open trade and investment policy framework is required. And the last one, taxes, structured should be at 50-50. This has been actually mentioned by OECD. Should be 50-50, wide base. We have to accept the fact that if you, from the previous studies, I refer to so many articles, research done by so many people actually from other countries, you cannot deny the benefit of VAT, value-added taxes, or Malaysia GST. Okay, of course you have problem when you mention about refund system and whatnot, but it has been proven GST or the VAT is the best mechanism actually to assist the country. Instead of, okay, being an academic, I say I'm quite independent. This is from my perspective. Datuk Sri, nobody actually influenced me, it's from me. I believe that our consumption tax, the GST, the VAT is the best. We have to accept that to develop the country, everybody should sacrifice, everybody should give something, chip in something. And going back to the zakat, philosophy behind that is only 2.5%, but imposed to all, right? So everybody need to have that. If you love your country, then yeah, we have to agree to this. We have to agree to this. And I have a session with the students, when we explain on this GST mechanism, they can see the good thing about it, okay? So, stable stream of revenue, I think all should contribute. Zen, and so, you are mentioning about so many things. I pun susah hati banyak sangat teks CGT lah. Because I have to teach the student, The syllabus you have to revise every semester then. So why don't we just think about something that can benefit all? Okay, that is from me. The next one is on the second question, steps to improve public perception and compliance. Okay, with new tax policies. Okay, we need to do that. We have experienced that when we have GST, create so many issues out there because they don't have the concept of whether they appreciate what is GST and VAT. So of course, part of how to improve public perception and compliance. Okay, next slide. This, of course, you have to actually understand. I need to refer to my notes, or else, Farah, I'll take about 2 hours, because my lecture normally 2 hours. Okay, the first part, you have to understand what influence taxpayer behavior and also understand the influence of small business behavior. My students, of course, I cannot mention, we are looking into the SVDP, the first session. Of course, when you talk about the SVDP session, most of the participants are from the small businesses actually. Okay, so we need to look why this thing happened. We're talking about the shadow economy. Yeah, these are the people actually looking, involved with this. So you have to understand that. Next slide, please. So these are the spectrum of taxpayers' attitude. I'm the one at the bottom there, willing to do the right thing. I believe that those attending this, you are at the one that comply. Yeah, because you are the tax expert, you must comply. Okay, so no issue with this group. The next part is, of course, try to, but don't always succeed. Yeah. The third one, don't want to comply, but will if we pay attention. And last, the top part, have decided not to comply. We have that group. They have decided not to comply. So what we need to do next? Okay, next slide. These are the people. Never mind, next slides, please. Okay, we have to, as I mentioned just now, the taxpayer behavior. First, the economic factors, financial burden. Okay, we are talking about amount owed and also the compliance behavior. If you have to pay more, of course, people will then tend to not comply. They are not happy. Okay, so that is a thing that you have to really inform them. The benefit that they will get from all these kind of taxes and so on. Compliant costs, okay. These incentives, if you refer to this incentive, I believe that we here, those who comply, of course, you are not happy. And there's a study looking into this tax amnesty, actually. When we have so many SVDP, VDP, and so on, those who comply, they are not happy with this. We are supposed to actually, if they are not comply, you need to do something to them, but not to give more. But it's okay, we need to maybe to educate them is one thing. And I believe that with the data that we have, because those who are not complied previously, when they involve or they join the SVDP and VDP program, we have the database. From there, at least we can do the study and look into how actually we can influence them. And of course, those who comply, they need something as a reward. Yeah, don't forget that, They also, we should do something for those who comply. And then behavioral factors that we can see individual differences, perceived inequity, okay? Those who pay more, of course, you need something in return. We cannot deny that, right? Because I believe that once you pay more, your purchasing power is less as compared to those who actually enjoy all the benefit. So we have to understand this, from the perspective of the taxpayer. We cannot ignore, we are human beings. Of course, you are working hard to earn something and then you can spend. But if your purchasing power is less and someone is just, get all the benefits from the government, of course they will. So that's the thing. And then, of course, main reason, of course, fairness of the taxation system. If there's opportunity for non-compliance, of course, they will go for that, these people. Social norms, this is the thing. If they see that among them, as I mentioned just now, like the shadow economy, they know their friends and so on involved with that, and they just try their best. Okay, so regards to the next slides, on the small business behavior, we can see that certain industry, maybe later, there's a paper from my students actually looking into this, certain business activities, normally our local business owner, they want to comply. Maybe you talk about the education. We have to educate them. Okay, we at the university, we go down to the people, we try to educate them, the benefit actually for them to comply. Okay, so that's the data that we have is from the IRB. When we analyze, we can see that, yes, we need to assist those people, the small business owner and so on. Okay, next, so when we talk about compliance behavior, actually, those who actually come up with the policy and whatever mechanism, approach that you plan to introduce, please looking into this. I believe that this is very long ago. We're talking about the 12 guiding principles. So, okay, we go to the next slide. Next slide. These are the thing. The people up there, you must have this clear mandate. Okay, Make taxpayer obligation clear. Okay, I have to go fast here. Secure high-level political commitment and buy-in from stakeholders. Social dialogue is important so that we can enhance the likelihood of reforms. And then building community confidence. Okay, we need to simplify the tax system. Today they have so many issues. Why you have e-boss today? Is it? You talk about the system. Sorry, lah. All those, even though you have all the digital technology and whatnot, but the thing is, the structure, the system should be there so that we can reduce the issues when people want to comply. Okay, next. I think later we can refer to the notes here. Escalating the severity of enforcement, that is important. Okay, and reform indirect taxes on goods and services, as I mentioned again just now. I mentioned this earlier. VAT is the most efficient and a strong revenue booster, and also, but we need to make sure that the refund system is there so that it won't create problems to those compliant taxpayer. And then again, engaging stakeholders in implementation, ensuring effective execution. So I think that's the metrics. This is the one I want to share with you. There are so many, next slide. There are so many variables or construct that I can look into, but I want to share with you this Laffer curve. Okay, Laffer curve, we are looking into the tax revenue, tax rate, the inflation rate, the benefits and so on. So when those people who come, if you plan to come up with whatever tools, mechanism to tax people and so on, looking into this model, okay, this Laffer curve model you should look into this before we implement. Because from my study and my team, okay, we found out that when you impose too high, okay, we have that, but I cannot mention what kind of tax. When you impose too high on certain items, actually it causes other issues. You're talking about illegal activities. Okay, so I think they already put they cut out that 10 minutes already for me. Okay then, I think you can have more session with me, Dato' Sri. Maybe you can have session at UiTM. I can explain more about this Laffer curve. I already explained to the custom people on this Laffer curve model. So if you plan anything, looking into that so that whatever that you impose, the tax rate, it should be for economic growth, and of course, we should avoid the negative side of it. Okay, that's all. Thank you. Christine, over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor. It's a delicate balancing act, right? While the end goal is a noble one, but having said that, the mechanisms have to be in place. And I guess it takes time to fine-tune the mechanisms every time we implement something new. Right now, we'd like to open to the floor for questions. Anyone have any questions? I'm sure, yes, please.
That's one, testing 1, 2.
Hi, thank you. I don't have any question, but just a simple comments on the presentation that been presented by Mr. Zheng Chao. So because it shows that the HVGT and when it shows like when we have a GST and compared to the SST now, it's too far away, which is actually I think for GST, you forgot that GST is not net amount, which is you need to minus. That is an input amount that you need to minus. And SST, when you compare, is totally net amount. And then for the HVGT, what I can see that what has been shown is actually that one just is not confirmed, okay? And everybody was asking why we use the HVT, which is a high value goods tax. Before it was started like luxury tax, which luxury is, the meaning of luxury is too bright, is too wide. So that's why we changed to the HVGT. So HVGT is actually, it's not like, okay, you can go and buy now because HVGT is postponed. You just go and buy your L, your C, or anything. Because HVGT, we need to, because we still make studies, because when we say about high value goods, it for sure will be, the amount will be tremendous, which is very high. I give you an example, because when we say about a brand, like for example, handbags, okay? When you want to purchase one Hermes, you need to spend at least 500,000 in the boutique itself. Not for you to buy a single thing, but you need to buy a lot of items in the boutique. Then you are entitled to get one bag. Entitled, not buying a bag. So this is a category that we are looking for to charge them for the HVGT. Okay, and then there is a scenario that you gave it just now, which is you said, when you go outside, buying a fruit from the fruit seller outside of the hotel, maybe you know there's no tax. But when you go to hotel, for sure, because it will be served, there will be surprise element. You come with your girlfriend, for sure you look stylo, and then for sure that amount will be, there is a service tax on top of that. So other than tax, like LVG, everything that you present, yes, we're still on track. I believe, I agree with Mr. Chong, because I'm from Customs, okay? Customs, we are the agency, we do the implementation. Whatever, when it comes to the policy, please go to the Ministry of Finance. Just write a letter, send it over an email, do whatever you want. Yes, we are there, because we are also paying tax. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you want to comment? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I say just some comments. Actually, I like indirect tax. Why I say like that? You have a choice how much you want to pay. Let's say you want to eat nasi kandar, $10, it's okay. You're going to go to an expensive restaurant, then you pay more lah. So it depends how much you want to pay, then you choose how you want to pay. So it's to me it's fair. So that's one point lah, Pastor Zen.
Yeah, I think I must thank the gentleman over there, yeah, from Customs, yeah, for giving more clarification about this SST versus GST, as well as the high value goods tax. Yeah, I think just now when I was doing my presentation, I was also saying that now that those thresholds were all speculated, yeah, and I totally agree that the high value goods tax was really targeting those really wealthy people, you know, and to me, I would also agree, you know, even with Manu, that this kind of so-called indirect taxes, it's a very, very, very fair tax mechanism, because, you know, you earn, you spend, you pay tax, you know. So that's fair, because when we always talk about a fair tax, you know, I would always say consumption tax is a very fair tax, because when you make the money, you have to spend it somewhere, and yeah, therefore you have to pay. And so like what the gentleman was saying, you know, if you buy a fruit that no one serves you, yes, okay, of course you don't pay the tax, but if you want someone to serve you, then you have to pay, you know, the tax for the service. You know? So it's definitely a fair thing. Yeah, and I totally agree that this indirect tax, it's definitely something very fair, because you have a choice to see whether you want to pay or not. If you don't want to pay, you know, you can select someone that is actually not charging this indirect tax, or buy something that is not subject to indirect tax. Yep, you always have a choice.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, Christine, if I may add to that.
Sure.
Having said that, actually, sir, there's a study overseas, yeah, we're talking about this luxury tax. They are targeting about, I can't remember the exact figure of the revenue for the country, but they actually, when they impose that tax, it's not up to the expectation. So we have to look into that, if that is our aim, or what is our aim actually. Maybe if you don't have that, so I can now think of buying more luxury items, but now I have to stop that because of and I just.
All right, thank you very much for your comment. I think we have one question time for one last question from the floor. Anyone? No, then any closing remarks from anyone? Yeah.
From myself, I think, to be fair, if you can think of, you know, zakat structure, okay, if you can think of how we can replicate that, and of course the best is, for me, from all the readings and so on, and this has been, you know, implemented for so many countries. Maybe we can someone here please, you know, convince those people out there to bring back the GST, fair and square. Talk about equity, fairness, I think. Maybe Farah ke? Okay, that's all from me. Thank you for this opportunity, and then that's all.
Thank you very much to all my distinguished panel of experts. Oh, Mr. Chong, would you like to add on? Sorry.
Maybe one last one. Okay, paying tax, I mean, I feel privileged to pay tax, but just that if more people come and pay tax, that would be better. So having said that, e-invoicing is the right direction because you want to close this shadow economy, then more people will pay tax, and then we feel very happy. Thank you.
Totally agree with you, especially if it contributes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I echo what Manu has said. You know, it is always a privilege to be saying that, you know, you are paying. I always tell people this, you know, if you can go out to the street and you can tell people that I'm paying 30% tax. Wow, that's so proud, isn't it? That means you're at the highest tax bracket. Yeah, it shows that you are really capable of, you know, making that income. So I would say you should feel proud paying tax, you know, and it's not just because it's your duty as a citizen, yeah, but it is also for the benefit of, you know, the next generation. It is also for the betterment of the whole country. But of course, I will still say, you know, the fairness has to be there, yeah. So I agree with what Dr. Zuraida was saying. If the government can still consider, you know, bringing back GST, that will be something that will be really great, especially for a lot of businessmen out there. But that's probably the next session for Farah to talk about. All right. So I think, yeah, that's from me.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much to all three panelists to discuss the impact of the recent and proposed tax reforms in Malaysia.